This was a last week. Yeah. This was a last week pop quiz. Like pop quiz. Yeah, this is the first thing we are starting. Pop quiz time. In the first question, the velocity is a vector quantity, but speed is a scalar quantity. How a vector quantity differ from a scalar quantity? So what is the difference between scalar and
Has both magnitude and direction. Scalar has only magnitude.
vector has
Both
direction?
magnitude and direction.
Yeah.
Both direction.
We just need a difference because if we say scalar have magnitude and magnitude only and vector has magnitude and direction, we just need a different. How it differed, just mention it has a direction. But it, you need it. Yeah. Underline the quantity.
Acceleration and momentum.
Underline all the vector quantities. Acceleration, is it a scalar or a vector? So it's a vector. Distance, scalar. Energy, scalar. Mass, momentum, temperature, scalar. So we have to underline the quantities which are vector. The next is figure 1.1 shows a passenger running across a large ship, a right angle. Whenever you see a right angle, like two vectors are mutually perpendicular or 90-degree to each other, you can use a Pythagoras theorem. Okay. In exam, they will give you both options that you can graphically mean like by drawing using a scale diagram, you will solve. The second method is by calculation. So by calculation,
So you use a 10, right?
what?
10.
So first, the best is you always try to draw the vectors. Okay. Any one of the vector you can draw first. So let's say if I draw east, like this vector, I drew east first. Okay. Which is 6.8, and then I drew north. The second vector due north. 2.4. It's written. This is 2.4 and this is 6.8 meter per second. The speeds are there. Velocities. If we want a resultant is always from tail of the first to the head of the last. Okay. So you can draw this. This will be your resultant. Why it is important to draw the vector, even though they did not ask us, because when they ask for direction, they ask specific directions, specific angles. Without the drawing, you will find it difficult to identify which angle that you have to work out. Okay. So either you can draw this diagram. As I mentioned, we have to find the resultant velocity as well as angle from north. So angle from north is which vector is due north? So means we need this angle, theta. This is angle from north. Clear? If they said angle from east, then which angle? Then this angle should be there, angle from east. So that is why it is important that you draw. And it's not like you have to draw 2.4, 6.8 in due east first. You can also draw north one first as well. You can draw.
So how many centimeters?
No, because we are not scaling that. We are not using a scale diagram. So we don't have to say like 1 centimeter equivalents to what. We are just roughly sketching the figure.
Is it important to draw?
Yeah, it is important to draw. That's you can identify. So let's say if you draw 2.4 first, 2.4 meters per second, then the second vector is due east, which is 6.8 meters per second. Now, what about the resultant from tail of the first to the head of the last? That will be the resultant. Now, if we need angle from, in the question they said angle from north. So which angle I need? I need this angle. Okay. So that's why it is important that you draw the figure. How to work out the magnitude? Magnitude is relatively easy because Pythagoras theorem, the resultant is the hypotenuse. So according to Pythagoras theorem, the hypotenuse is equals to under root of a base square and perpendicular. So it will be 2.4 square plus 6.8 square in a root. What's the answer? 7.2. So 7.2 meters per second. They are 90 degree to each other, mutually perpendicular. Yeah, this angle is 90 between them. The two vectors are perpendicular. The second is the angle. So if we need the angle from the north, so this is the right angle triangle. This angle is 90. Here, angle is always between the base and the hypotenuse. So this one is a base and this one is a perpendicular. And here is a height. So we'll use a tangent theta because we have the base in perpendicular. So we can use a trigonometric ratio. Tangent theta is perpendicular divided by base.
P divided by B, right?
Yeah. So tangent theta, what is the perpendicular here?
6.8.
Perpendicular is 6.8. What is the base? 2.4. So 6.8 divided by 2.4, what's the answer?
71.
No, the 6.8 divided by 2.4 first.
6.8 divided by 2.4.
2.83. And then you need a theta, so take a tan inverse. 2.83. 7.5, so we'll write 7.5 degrees. So the resultant is 7.2 at an angle of 7.5 to the north.
So which one is the base and which one is the...
How you know which one is a base and perpendicular? It depends on which angle they ask us. Because in the question they ask us angle from north, so angle is always between the base and the hypotenuse. If let's say if they ask what is a yes,
Angle is
what?
angle is 70.5.
70.5, okay.
Yes.
I thought you said 7.5.
This is wrong.
Okay, so 70.5. Yes, you can also use the sine and the cosine. You can also use the sine and the cosine because you already have the resultant. So sine can also be used, cosine could also be used. So any of them you can use. Without drawing a triangle, yes, you can. You can.
Sir, if you get the angle wrong, how many marks will you get?
Usually for these questions, like example, if it's a 4-mark question, then you will have about 2 marks for the angle and 2 marks for the.
So how will you know which one is the base and which one is the...
How you will know that first after drawing a triangle, once you draw a triangle, as they ask the angle from the north. So which one is the north? This one is the north. This one is the east. So they ask angle of the resultant from north. So this is theta for us. So this is theta. The angle is always between the base and the hypotenuse. So this will be the base. Watch out for the wire under the chair. So this will be hypotenuse and this is the perpendicular. So angle is always between the base and the hypotenuse.
Marks don't make the triangle.
No, making a triangle is not giving you mark. You can also use a parallelogram method. You can also use a triangle method. All will work and give you the same result. But in a parallelogram or a triangle method, you have to measure the lengths. Like example, you have to first scale and then measure the lengths to work out the resultant. Same thing. You have to measure the angle to.
These lines, they should be on the the direction of the...
Yeah, same as the direction given.
Like if that line is in south, we draw it at the south.
At the south, yes.
Oh.
Okay. But try to draw the diagram same, like should not be like this. Same manner as the question is given. Like north is given this is, so you should draw your vector in the same direction. Oh no. In question 2, a spacecraft of a mass 300 kg is moving in a straight line at a speed of 8,000 meters per second. Calculate the momentum of the spacecraft. So momentum is a product of mass and velocity. 1 mark for writing a formula. Second mark is for the answer. So 300 multiplied by 8,000. What's the answer? So 2.4 into 10 power 6 kilogram meter per second. It's fine. But try to represent when it's too big or too small, try to write in scientific notation. Use the sign like exponents. The fuel on the spacecraft exploded and the spacecraft split into two parts. The direction in which the part moved does not change. After the explosion, the speed of the front part increases to 9,000 meters per second and it has a mass of 150. Calculate the speed of a rear part after the explosion. How you'll work out? So you have to use what? You have to use conservation of the momentum. Whenever explosion, collision happen or occur, you have to always use a conservation of momentum. The conservation of the momentum is m1 u1 plus m2 u2 is equals to m1 v1 plus m2 v2. That is the case. That is the case when two objects are colliding with each other. Like the total momentum of the two objects before is equals to total momentum after. That is when there is a collision. But this is not a collision. What is there in the question? This is explosion. So whenever explosion is there, m like the total mass and the total initial velocity should be equals to
M1 V1 plus
m1 v1 plus m2 v2. But during an explosion, what will happen whenever object explode? If one part move towards left, the other part will move towards right. They will move in because with the same momentum but in opposite directions to conserve. So, but in the question they mention here, the fuel on the spacecraft explode, and the spacecraft split into two parts. The direction in which the parts move does not change. So usually what happens when an object explodes, the direction changes, but here in this case, the direction does not change because the fuel ejected gas moving downward, so that parts will move upward. So after the explosion, the speed of the front part increases to 9,000 meters per second and it has a mass of 150. Calculate the speed of a rear part after the explosion. So we'll use the switch the place. No, switch the place. It will be easy for them. Yes.
switch. No. Even talking about okay, last time Allah leave the conversation later. Go away, go away, go away. No.
So because it is an explosion, so we will use a conservation of the momentum. So total momentum before, what is the total momentum before? 300 times 800 equals to total momentum 8,000, I mean. Total momentum after the front part, which is front part increases to a 9,000. So the speed is 9,000 and what is the mass? 150. So it will be 150 into
9,000.
9,000. plus what will the mass of a rear part? It will also, because the total mass of a spacecraft was 300. If the mass of the front part is 150, what is the mass of the rear part? That will also be 150. So 150 times v. We don't know its speed. Now we just simplify. So this was
2.4 million 10 power 6.
6. This is how much? 150 times 9,000?
1.35 multiplied by 10 power 6.
10 power 6 plus
150 V.
150 V. This will move other side subtracted. I will solve here. So 2.4 exponent 6 minus 1.35 exponent 6. 150 V. 150 is multiplied, other side will be divided. This 150 is, what's the final answer?
The final 7333.
What's the final answer?
7,333.
7,333 meters per second.
Can you round it off to 7,000?
Yes, or you can write 7 exponent 3.
No, can you round it off?
Yes, it's fine.
Which is in the
That is the
calculator.
round off banana.
No, it's fine. You write 7,330.
Because in the calculator was
Yes.
slugging it.
I understand.
Look, in this question, there's a spacecraft which is having a mass of 300 kg, and initially it was moving at a speed of 8,000 meters per second. Okay. Then this spacecraft exploded, and the explosion caused a splitting of the two parts, the front and the rear part. The front part, which is having a mass of 150 kg, it's moving at a speed of 9,000 meters per second. We want to find at what speed the rear part will move. Okay. Because whenever explosion happened, the total momentum before should be equal to total momentum after. So the total momentum before, the mass was 300 and the speed was 8,000. The total momentum after, the mass of the front part is 150 and it was moving at a speed of 9,000. Plus the mass of the rear part is also 150, but it was moving at a speed v. So after forming the equation, we have to solve. Why we subtract? Because it's a mathematical rule. If you see 2.4 exponent 6 here, and this was 1.35 exponent 6 plus 150 V. This is added on one side. So when we move anything to other side of equal to, we subtract that. That's why it will be 2.4 exponent 6 minus 1.35 exponent 6. That is the rule, mathematical rule. Same thing, 150 is multiplied with V. So we need only V. So that will be divided. So the final answer, it will be 2.4 exponent 6 minus 1.35 exponent 6 divided by 150. That will give us
7,333.
yes.
We first subtract then divide.
Yes, you have to subtract and then divide.
Yes, but if you don't show the subtraction part, but we do it, will we lose a mark?
No, the steps in physics, steps are not having marks. The unit conversions having marks. Even for example, you write this first, and you write the final answer. You will score the marks. So in physics, steps are not having marks. Unit conversion, if any conversion is there, that is having mark. Final answer is having mark, and the formula which you use, that's also having the marks. 7,333, he said.
You can round it up.
No, he's saying exactly 7,000 is coming. Okay, fine. It depends on what you substitute, like how many numbers you substitute. So it should be 7,000. The next is the total kinetic energy of the two parts after explosion is greater than the original kinetic energy of the spacecraft. Like the spacecraft, initial kinetic energy was less, but when the explosion happened, the final kinetic energy, the kinetic energy of the rear part and the front part, that is higher. How? State the energy transfer that occur in the explosion. So chemical energy changes to kinetic. Like chemical energy, explosion happened because of the fuel. So chemical energy of the fuel turn into kinetic energy. Internal is a heat energy. So it's not taking heat energy to move. It is using a fuel, burning a fuel and move the rocket propel. So that's why the chemical energy for a rocket propulsion, it's always the chemical energy turned into kinetic energy. The explosion lasts for 0.2 seconds. The average force on the front part. So whenever you need a force, so you can use a formula for impulse. Impulse is force multiplied by time. So if you need the force is impulse divided by time. So we need for the front part. So
We don't know what's the force, right?
no, we can identify. See, when the rocket was one piece, the front and the rear part, it was intact. The front part is having a mass of 150 kg and the rear part is also having a mass of 150 kg. The total mass of a spacecraft is 300. And what speed it was moving? 800.
8,000.
8,000 meters per second. When it exploded, the two parts move at different speeds. So this is 150, the front part, at what speed it is moving? 9,000 meters per second. The rear part we just calculated at what speed it is moving. It is moving at a speed of 7,000 meters per second. Okay. The question is calculate the force on the front part. So how we calculate the force on the front part? The change in the momentum of the first part, like the front part. So what is the change in momentum? So 150 into 8,000, that is the initial momentum. And 150 into 9,000, that is the final momentum. We just subtract them to get impulse, and impulse divided by time, we'll get the force. So here, so if we need the force is impulse divided by time. Impulse is the change in momentum. We just need for a front part. This is a front and rear. Here, this is a front and rear. The front part was initially moving because they were stick together before the explosion. Both have the mass of 150 and speed was 800. As they're moving together, they will have the same speed. But after the explosion, the speed is 9,000. So impulse will be 150 times 9,000 minus 150 times 8,000 divided by the time. What was the duration? 0.2. What's the answer?
7.5 and 10 power 5.
10 power 6. This 7.5 multiplied with 10 power 6.
How much?
7.5 multiplied with 10 power
7.5 exponent?
10 power 6 is 5 in 1.
I got 5.
Yes, Abdullah. What's the answer for this? 150 times 9,000?
150.
150
Power check.
power 5?
150.
Anyone saying yes, 5.
So 150 times 9,000 subtracted 150 from times 8,000 divided by 0.2. First do the product, subtract, and then add the last, divide by 0.2.
5 exponent 5.
Exponent 5, okay. Question 3. A plain irregular lamina has a mass of 50 grams. It hangs from a nail that passed through a small hole H near the edge of a lamina. The nail acts as a pivot, a point of rotation. The lamina can swing about it. It can oscillate. So what will happen? This is a pivot because if its weight is acting downward, as a result, this weight will cause a turning effect clockwise. Because of its inertia, it will move to other direction. Like the point H will be there still, And now the weight is on this direction. So because of this weight will cause an anti-clockwise rotation. So actually what happened, this object, it's not a regular object, but let's say if the objects look like this, and this was point H. So because of its weight, because of the weight, the object will rotate clockwise and anti-clockwise. Why? Because weight is acting downward, cause a clockwise rotation. Because of inertia, it move other direction. Again, the weight is acting downward, cause anti-clockwise rotation. It will oscillate. Eventually, it will stop at this point. Why it will stop at this point?
Gravity.
Gravity is pulling, but at this point, the weight will not cause any turning effect because there's no perpendicular distance. That is what happened. Like if you hold this pen and you release, so what will happen? It will oscillate and eventually it will return to this center position, which shows that there is no turning effect.
So no resultant force.
No resultant moment. No resultant moment and no resultant force. That's why it will be at stationary. The weight of a lamina is a force that acts downwards. Explain why the lamina experience a downward force. Why a lamina?
Gravitation. Gravitation.
Because of gravity.
Because of gravity, due to gravity. The gravity act on the object or because of its weight. They already mentioned here that weight is a downward, explain why lamina experience this downward force. So just due to the gravity.
The gravitational pull is also.
Yeah, gravitational pull or a gravity.
So only these words, right?
Yeah.
You do not need to, extend it.
Calculate weight of a lamina on earth. Whenever you're calculating a weight, weight is mass times the gravity. Yes?
Mass multiplied by gravity, right?
First explain about, do we start with due to gravity or because of gravity?
The gravitational force act on the lamina. Which-
Those words like because.
The gravitational force act on the lamina that is responsible for the downward force.
Is there
So
mark
you
for
can-
this?
You can
Effective
try.
multiplied by-
So you can.
You cannot say you cannot say weight. Why you cannot say weight? Because they already use weight in the question is why there's a downward force. Why there's like if I say why you have a weight, what you will say?
Because of-
You will not say why I have weight because so you will say because of the gravity I have weight. Gravitational force acting on me, that's why I have weight. So you'll mention that the gravitational force acting on the lamina that is responsible for the weight.
No, sir, I write due to mass. I'm talking about this.
Yeah, due to mass, the gravity is acting on you. So if you want to write here, the lamina is having a mass, and because of the mass, it experiences a gravitational force. Weight is mass times the gravity. The mass should always be in kilogram.
multiplied by gravity.
Weight is mass times the gravity. Here in the question, the mass is given in gram. So you have to convert into kg.
Divide by 1.
500, 50, sorry. So weight is mass times the gravity. The mass is 50 divided by 1000. So 0.05
9.8.
times 9.8. What's the answer?
0.49. I take
0.49 newtons. Yes?
You said why you be converted into
Yes.
kilograms?
Sir, you said the mark distribution are for the formula, the answer, and the unit conversion. Why are there only two marks?
In this case, because some cases like converting gram to kilogram is not having mark. Like the final, obviously, if you don't convert gram to kilogram, your final answer will be wrong. So you will lose a mark anyways.
So why do we have to convert it in kilograms?
SI unit of the mass is kilogram. That's why.
Sorry sir, मेरे क्वेश्चन में आंसर मिल गया था सर. Basically, आ गया.
Is it? Yeah, it is fine. You rounded off but round to two significant figure, 2 to 3 significant figures only. The weight produce a moment about h. Use figure 3.1. Calculate the moment. Moment is a product of force in the perpendicular distance. So the weight is acting. What was the weight here?
0.1.
0.49 Newton. What distance I should take?
The one, the top.
We always take a perpendicular or a 90-degree distance. So the 90-degree distance is 8 centimeter or 0.08 meter.
So we have to divide, no multiply.
Yeah, so to calculate a moment, it is a product of force and distance. So force is 0.49 and the perpendicular distance is 0.08. What's the answer?
3.92.
3.92? No, no, no.
Sir, yes, yes,
Zero
sir.
point zero three nine. 0.039.
0.0392.
सर मैं सुबह से देख रहा हूँ मेरा नहीं है सर
Because, yeah, because it's 0.49 and
Sir,
0.08.
Can we write? So can we remove the two?
Maybe you did not convert into meters. You leave it in, left it in centimeter. Unit conversion is important. Always convert to SI units. Lamina is now released from a position as shown in figure 3.1. Describe what does happen to a lamina from the time it released until it stop moving.
So you told the weight and
Yeah, so same thing. The lamina will move clockwise and anti-clockwise. Like the weight of a lamina will cause a movement, first clockwise and anti-clockwise, and eventually it will stop when the center of the gravity is below the pivot.
there's no perpendicular distance to correlate.
Why can't we multiply 0.4 with? Because we always need the perpendicular distance. 6 is not the perpendicular distance. We always need the perpendicular distance to calculate the moment. 90-degree distance from the force. So 8 is a 90-degree distance. That's why we took 8 centimeter, which was 0.08 meter. So for the last one, when we release the lamina, it will rotate or move clockwise and anti-clockwise direction due to its weight and eventually stop at a point, a center of gravity below H. The lamina will. Yeah, right. Next question, figure 4.1 shows a long vertical tube sealed at the base and open at the other end. The tube is 1 meter long. Cross-sectional area of a tube is 4 exponent minus 4. It is filled with a liquid of a density 1 exponent 4. The atmospheric pressure is 1 exponent 5. Calculate the total pressure. They ask for total. So what is the total pressure at the base? 1 is due to the liquid and 1 is due to the atmosphere. So the total pressure will be equals to the liquid pressure plus the atmospheric pressure. How to work out the liquid pressure? The pressure due to liquid is a density, gravity, and depth. Density is 1.4 exponent 4 for the liquid. The gravity is 9.8 and how deep? It is 1 meter. So we'll multiply by 1. This will give us the pressure of the liquid. What's the answer for pressure of liquid? 1 exponent 4 times 9.8. No, and tell an
1.372 multiplied by 10 to the power of 5.
2. You forgot to.
No, 3 significant figures. So I wrote 1.37. So the pressure due to the liquid is 1.37. What is the pressure due to the atmosphere? They mentioned the atmosphere is 1 exponent 5. We need the total pressure. So how to work out the total pressure? The total pressure will be equals to the liquid pressure plus the atmospheric pressure. The pressure of the liquid we calculated, it is 1.37 exponent 5 plus the atmospheric pressure is 1 exponent 5. So this will become 2.37 exponent 5 Pascal. That is the total pressure which is experienced by the base. 2.37, yeah. I wrote 2.37.
I wrote 2.4.
Reactivity 100%.
The force exerted on inside surface of the bottom of the tube. Whenever you need a force and the cross-sectional area is also given. So pressure is force divided by area. This answer was 2.37 exponent 5 Pascal. We need the force. So force will be pressure times area. What is the pressure?
2.4 multiplied by 10,000.
2.37 or 2.4 exponent 5 times the cross-sectional area was 4 exponent negative 4. What is the answer?
Sir, the answer is 96.
Not exactly 96.
No, it's 96 multiplied by 10 power 1.
94.8.
94.8.
Sir, same.
95.
Look, everyone having different answers. Sir, minus
94.8. Round it off to
94.88. 95 will be there if you round off. But round off to 3 significant figure. Don't round off like, don't write it. Yes?
My answer is correct, 96. Round it off to 3 significant. There's no cheating. No,
No chat GPT.
no cheating. Sir. This time no cheating.
Okay, great.
Sir, supervision of parents, sir.
The small sheet of a glass is placed over the open end of a tube.
Yes, sir.
So we'll also use atmospheric pressure.
The tube is inverted. Yeah.
We'll also use atmospheric pressure.
Yeah.
So why won't we use the pressure due to the liquid?
Because the total pressure is due to atmosphere and liquid both.
Okay,
If they
so we
ask-
use the
Total pressure always.
pressure due to liquid.
Yeah.
Okay.
The open end of the tube and the sheet are a short distance below. The sheet of a glass seals the open end to an inverted tube. Describe what happened in the inverted tube when the sheet of a glass is removed. So the moment we remove
With-
this, so it's first thing what will happen, the level of the liquid will decrease. And eventually what will happen when the pressure of the atmosphere is equals to pressure of the liquid in the inverted tube, it will stop changing the level. It is,
I don't know, sir.
so a glass tube is there, it's the same thing. Like you take a container, a glass filled with water and empty that into another container or try invert that into another container filled with water. All the water will not move out from the liquid from the container or a jar. What will happen? Some water will come out and eventually it will stop once the outside pressure and inside pressure is equal. Okay. So you have to mention here the water will move out from the inverted tube until or eventually the outside and inside pressures are equal. Next we have question 5. Figure 5.1 shows a